Hi, my name is Keri Barnum. I am the Executive Director of New Shelves Books, and this is Free Advice Friday, the hour every Friday where we get together to talk about book marketing, publishing, and answer your questions live. You can join us at newshelves.com/FAF, or you can watch the replay on YouTube, and that's just youtube.com/newshelvesbooks. We've got a couple of questions that we've got on email that we'll jump right into. And of course, anyone live, feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A. I do ask that the questions go in the Q&A box, not in the chat box, because you guys are so active and fun on the chat that it goes by too quickly for me to track, but the Q&A box stays on my screen. So I do appreciate that. The first question is from Cheryl asking if there's a trustworthy and free QR code generator to recommend to send potential readers to her book. So Cheryl, Dave Chesson from Kindlepreneur has created a QR generator, and that is a handy tool that I would recommend. It's free. It's QR generators for authors. You can find it at kindlepreneur.com, and I will drop that into our chat box right here as soon as I make sure I'm not messaging myself. So I would recommend that. There are some others that you can find, but that one's made for authors, and we love Dave Chesson, so definitely a trustworthy source right there. All right, now for these emailed questions, because we had some good ones. A question that came in about ISBNs from Nancy. Excuse me, and Nancy's designer let her know that there is a check digit being added to her ISBNs. And Nancy was wondering, what in the world is a check digit? What is it, and why is it being added? So a check digit is just a digit at the end of a barcode that is kind of a check. It's an internal check to make sure that the right product is assigned to the right barcode. So if a check digit is being added to your barcode, I think her designer was on a Mac, and that's why a pop-up showed up. Just know that's normal. That's not new. It's been around since like 2010. A check digit is perfectly normal. And in fact, the last digit of your ISBN is a ISBN check digit. So when you have a 13-digit ISBN, that very last digit is the check digit. Well, yes, the check digit has been around since the 80s, but in the barcode specifically, and for an auto, and again on Mac, I think it's been since 2010 is when Mac's auto generator started. Don't quote me on that, but I read something about that. I don't have a Mac, so, but check digit is normal. This is not anything to worry about. This is nothing new. If you get a pop-up, maybe Macs have updated, so now they're doing that now, because this is a designer who's been working on books for a while. But no, it's normal. It's to protect you. It's to make sure that everyone's looking up the right product, and nothing to be concerned about. All right. And the next question here. There we go. All right, the next question. Is time travel romance a subgenre that indie authors can hope to succeed in, or is it dominated by traditionally published authors only? Let's talk about that. So this is kind of more of a romance and genre question, but when we're looking at it, I always say go find your biggest authors who are writing a certain subgenre like time travel romance and see if they're indie or not. Obviously, the biggest one we're probably all thinking of is Diana Gabaldon. No, that is not indie published. That's traditionally published. Furthermore, the first book started quite some time ago. The first book came out, gosh, it's been a really long time. I read it like 10 years ago. I read it more than 10 years ago because I read it while I was engaged, which was 15 years ago. So the first book was written quite some time ago. So it's important to also look at that to see when the book actually was trending and on point. Is that subgenre still selling? Yes, Diana Gabaldon's still selling, but is time travel still selling? In some cases, yes. However, then you have to look even deeper. What kind of time travel romance is still selling? Well, it's not the sweet kind, I'll tell you that. Typically, it is something that is going back, and it's not just slight time travel, it is deep time travel. It's going back hundreds of years, and it's typically got some spice and some not PG rated scenes in there. So if that is what you want to write, you have a chance even as an indie. So it's important not just to look at the genre, the subgenre, and who's dominating, but when they started, when they grew their audience, and what type they're writing. Because maybe you're thinking, oh, well, I could do some sweet romance in time travel, but that's not what the reader base is typically looking for. So you probably won't do very well there. So if you're looking to write to market, it's really important to really go deeper and deeper and deeper. If you're writing to market, you need to make sure that you're ticking all of the major boxes. It's not enough to say, are indie authors writing this? Are traditionally published authors writing this? You have to know, is it selling? When it started? Are you hitting all those big categories? Are you hitting the reader base? Because typically people are looking for clean romance, or it's got so many names: clean romance, wholesome romance, PG romance, whatever you want to call it, are not reading that kind of novel. And in fact, a lot of historical novels tend to be on the spicier side for romance. So if you're writing the market, keep digging. Don't stop at the genre and the subgenre. That's my best advice for you there. Last week you mentioned something about special numbers that libraries use, but it went by so quickly that I missed it. So we're probably talking about a PCIP block. We've been talking about that a lot lately. PCIP blocks. We have been using the Donahue group for years, and they are still taking submissions for PCIP blocks through the end of this month. After that, they will no longer be taking submissions. They are closing, and we are going to give the Cassidy cataloging group a try. So probably the PCIP block and cataloging numbers is what you're thinking about. Your PCIP block will include your BISAC codes. It will include Dewey Decimal numbers. It includes all sorts of information and numbers in there, but that's probably what you're looking for. And if you go to the New Shelves website, there's a search tab, and if you type in PCIP, it will pull up a bunch of stuff on our website, resources, links, the whole 9 yards, so that you can get caught up there. Oops. All right, another emailed question. We had lots of emailed in questions this week. It was fun. All right, another question that came up was a question about whether or not it is worthwhile to go to an industry event, not a book event, but an industry event for your particular topic or specialty, and to get a table. So for instance, this author is in the leadership category, and their book is on leadership, and they were asked if they would like to promote themselves with a table at a leadership conference. The cost was $500, which is a little bit steep, and they were asking whether or not I thought it was worth it for them to go to that conference and to market themselves and to have a table. And I bet some of you can bet or guess my answer. That depends on your goals. But the root of it is when you're looking at not a book event, something that is more industry related or specialty related, and you're bringing your book, I always say this is more of like a PR billboard than a advertisement or an ROI move. You very probably at $500, you may earn enough, you may sell enough books to make them enough royalty to cover that cost. However, chances are you probably won't at $500. However, I ask you, is it worth it for you to go take your time to network, to PR, to possibly make relationships with people who have the power in organizations or within universities who could possibly become interested in your book and then advocate for sales in large quantities down the road. You know, our professor is going to be there, and could you chat with them and possibly get your book on some type of syllabus for a leadership class? Or are there going to be larger organizations there where you could possibly get your book worked into the organization or recommended by them? Then that has a different type of value than just book sales immediately, but it does act much more like a billboard. It's kind of a long-term awareness campaign, not a, if I bring my books, will I make enough money to pay for this event? Chances are the answer is no. So always, whether it be a book con, an author festival, or if it's some type of corporate or industry event, keep in mind your goals and what you're hoping to get out of it. I think if you go in with realistic expectations, you will leave much happier. And that's really the base of it, is make sure that you have realistic goals, realistic expectations, so that you can go, and whether or not you sell one book or 500 books, you can go knowing that you got a great experience, you networked, because you never know how that's going to work. Even sometimes when I go sometimes to big author events or writers groups and things like that, I don't necessarily leave with giant contracts or anything, but those authors often will contact me a year or two down the road. So with these types of events, it's very much networking, and it's the long game. So you have to go with the end in mind. And if that's not going to meet your goals, if you don't want to do that, or that's not your goals, or you don't have the money for that, if you're not going to earn it back, well, then there's your answer. Let's see. If I altered the original title of my book and add enhanced pictorial revision or addition, will I still be able to add awards and reviews to the new book cover? I'd like to set up, I will contact you, Anna. Again, I'm just behind on my emails because of being sick. But as far as the enhanced pictorial revision, it depends. Are you doing a second edition and releasing a second edition under the same title and the same author name? If so, everything will transfer, your reviews and everything will transfer. If you re-release your book under a completely different title, none of your reviews will transfer. You can still say this book earned X award under the title, whatever it is, but your reviews on Amazon and things like that will not transfer. You can do a second edition and change the subtitle slightly, and that will get through typically and not lose anything. But the actual title you cannot change if you want to keep, if you want to actually keep all of your reviews online. Excuse me. All right. Then we had a big question, a question about deciding who to work with. This is kind of a really big one. A question about who to work with, what companies to trust when you're deciding on PR, on marketing, on really any type of work. If you're looking for a publisher, if you're looking for someone to really market your book for you, how do you know who to trust? And that is a big question. And I wanted to make sure I pulled up the actual email, because no surprise here, I pulled up the wrong one. So I'm going to find the right one. I tried to just talk while I looked, but I did not succeed. I failed there. Hang on. Here we go. I got the right email. We'll make it through. All right. Excuse me. So the question was very much about, who do you trust? How do you, like, I've got a list of people that I've either talked to who say they can market my book, or I've gotten email offers from, and they've contacted me, or I've contacted them. Now I have to decide who I'm going to work with and why. And how do I decide who to trust? I know the publishing industry can be wrought with people who don't really follow up on what they say they're going to do, either out of accidental overwhelm, because a lot of the publishing industry, marketing industry is small companies, or out of just not being honest people or honest companies, or there's a lot of misunderstanding about what's being promised, or maybe promises being made a bit bigger to make sound bigger than you're actually getting. For example, there are a lot of companies that promise bestsellers. They promise that if you publish with them, they will make sure that you have a best-selling title. And it's true, they do. They get you in a low-hanging fruit category on Amazon. They drop your book down to 99 cents right when they launch it. And they push it out and they make sure that you get the 10 or 15 sales you need to get a bestseller in category. They slap that sticker on your book and they say, here's your best-selling title. Now, you may never sell more than 25 copies of the book in its entire lifetime, but you have a bestseller. And so there is that. And I do think we have to be careful of that, because people are very drawn in by the word bestseller, but they think that means that they're going to sell a lot or that they're going to make a lot of money. And that's not necessarily the truth. Now, for some people, they simply want the title of best-selling author because it helps their resume, so to speak, or they're using this as a business book or a calling card, and that's what they need to really to put on their resume, and they're happy with that, which is fine. However, that's not what everyone means. So I think it's really important to know what's being offered. And always, I think it's important that we do our due diligence. Google is our friend. The Ally Watchdog site, look them up. Author Beware is another good site. I think that we need to do that, but also, what are they promising? And are they promising something realistic? There have been times when people say, well, I want to guarantee from you, Keri, that you can sell 5,000 copies of my book. And I say, I'm so sorry, I can't do that. I can get your book in front of people. I can make sure that buyers see your book, but I can't guarantee it will sell. I can position it as much as possible, but in the end, the book has to sell itself. So if I promised you that I was going to sell 5,000 copies, well, then I better be ready to go buy 5,000 copies, and I'm not. So I think you have to be very careful with that. And you have to kind of be aware that if it sounds too good to be true, unfortunately, it usually is too good to be true. And so go cautiously, look for other people who have worked with these people. And you will sometimes have bad experiences. It's also really important, and I see this more and more as I work with clients, is that it's important that you understand the type of communication you will get with whatever company or program you're working with, and that you are able and willing to deal with that. Many programs right now, thanks, Scott. Many programs right now, because again, a lot of companies in publishing and marketing, there were small companies, you guys. And so many of them do mostly, if not all, online either email or online systems for communication. And even that many times is limited. You know, we email you or we have set calls, but we are not just taking emails whenever you send them in, or else you do get charged for it. And that is because they're trying to manage and limit time. It's very hard to find a company anymore that will either do calls or phone. If you've ever called the New Shelves phone, typically our voicemail says, you've almost reached New Shelves. Thanks for calling. Leave a message, but you should also absolutely either text us, or you should also email us, because we'll get back to you sooner. And now I will say that when we work with clients, we set up dedicated call time to make sure that we are actually face-to-face on Zoom, or we're getting calls. But there are only so many hours in a day. And if I answered every single call that came into New Shelves, which is between real calls and spam calls, we probably get anywhere from 5 to 10 an hour. I would never actually be able to make sure that the work that we do and that we've promised clients gets done. So communication is another big one. Also realize that a lot of times when you're working with companies, they're not responding right away. It is very, very average that you will get a response from any type of company within 2 to 7 business days. So that's important to realize. Are you okay with that? Do you know the policy of the company that you're working with? Do they get back to you right away? Is it a help ticket? These are all things that you need to know, because sometimes it's not necessarily that it's a bad company, it's that it's a bad fit for you. And you need to know that. And also, it just makes a more pleasant experience. So do your research. And also, I have to say this, you guys, because I see this so often. When you have people, if your book came out in the last 6 months to a year and you have people saying, well, if you pay me $5,000 to re-release your book, we can make it a bestseller. We can make it everything. Please run. Unless your book was really horrible, like there's really something wrong with it. Typically, we don't recommend that you republish a book. We say, let's work with what we have. Now, there are times where I tell people, your cover really doesn't fit in genre and we need to update it. We need to make it, we need to make adjustments. But I have seen people who have republished a book with 3 different companies in less than 2 years, and they've paid 5 to 10 grand every single time because everyone's promising they'll do better, but they don't, because it's still the same book and you still have to sell it. So again, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Proceed with caution and do your due diligence. Sometimes you will fall down. Sometimes you'll have a bad experience. Sometimes it's not a good fit. And unfortunately, that happens, but you'll find some really great people as well. Ask for references. If you're in our Free Advice Friday Facebook group, ask for references. Ask for if anyone has recommendations of a great proofreader or anything like that, because that's also usually a good indication when someone else has said they've had a good experience. So I know it's hard. I know it's tough. And also another thing, know the promise, especially when it comes to PR and marketing. Know if you're signing up for something, if you're getting PR, which is exposure and awareness, or if you're getting advertising and marketing. If you're actually getting ads, Amazon ads, where it's putting it out there and asking for a sale, or if you're getting PR exposure on the local news channel. They go hand in hand, but they are different. And I think that's really important because sometimes, again, that's one of the things that can be confusing for some, and it leads to disappointment when the company gave you exactly what they promised, but there was misunderstanding of what that entailed. So expectations, do your research and all of that. All right. Now we do have another question, and this was about a PCIP block, which hopefully, all right, good. Wendy's online. Wendy, I waited for you. All right, so Wendy had a question about whether or not you should get a PCIP for your audiobook. So PCIP block, again, is a cataloging block. And the question was, do you get one for your audiobook? And if so, where does it go? Because there's no copyright page. Does the poor narrator have to sit there and to read off the PCIP block? They do not. So the reason why we do the PCIP block is to get it cataloged. So number one, you have it on file and you can keep that on file for when you need it or if someone requests it. But the other reason is because it gets it into the MARC, the Sky River, and the OCLC systems, which is how librarians track books. And this is one of the ways that worldcat.org tracks books. And I'm going to share my screen because you know that's what I do. All right. So the reason why is because if we're looking here and we want to look up a book, did I mention I've been sick? Completely blanked out on every title possibly known to man. All right, let's try this. I'm going to spell her name wrong. There we go. All right. So if we go to Hank Philippi Ryan, I just know she's got a lot of books. So we can see this is a record for a print book. But this one right here, this one is for an audiobook. So yes, if you have an ebook, if you have a print ebook and audiobook, you do want PCIP records for all of them because that gets you into the system. So if you are not going exclusive with ACX or Amazon, and you do plan to put your audiobook out wide through Findaway Voices or I forget the other ones, Authors Republic, then yes, because that is the same thing as having it for your print book, and that makes it easier for a librarian to catalog using Overdrive and that kind of thing. So it's a value-added feature. Do you have to do it? No, but it does help. It does help get you in the system right away, make sure everything's cataloged correctly. And it does show up in its own individual record, which again is important. It's important to make sure that we can see our books. And it's fun to track too, because then you can see when books are actually being carried. We did this, a client of mine, his book is in here. And it's fun because we can see as we're marketing the book, we can see it growing. We can see people starting to carry the book. So this book originally was not in here at all. Now we can see it's being carried in the Rochester, New York library, the Indiana library, Illinois, Minnesota, Montana. I'm so proud I got that one. Montana. And then I think there was actually one in another country. Yep. It's also being carried in Italy and Nigeria. How cool is that? And all of this because, you know, things were cataloged. So it is fun to be able to really watch that as well as just being nice. Yeah. And David is saying it bothers him that the cover images don't always show up at WorldCat. Yes. So part of that is it does come directly from if your images are uploaded to Bowker, to your ISBN at bowker@myidentifiers.com. However, that information can take forever to go through. Now, I will say that you can contact OCLC. I have a link somewhere. You can contact them and ask them to put your cover up, and they typically will, but it can take several months. But you can contact the OCLC people directly through WorldCat, and they do that. It does. I've got a link somewhere. I'll have to find it for you, but sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. And individual librarians who have that access can do it sometimes as well, but it takes a little while. There we go. Thank you. Tara has generously put it up there. So it's support@oclc.org. If you give them the listing, the ISBN, and the cover image, you can request that that is actually put up, and they're usually pretty helpful and nice. Aren't we all? We're all usually pretty nice until that one time when it's a bad day and we're not. Just me, maybe. All right. Excuse me. All right. Yes, your to-do list. That's you guys, I'm not even ashamed. I always say I like to give homework and give you guys things to do. All right. And is it a good idea to build a relationship with the local library system first? It's always a good idea to build a relationship with your local library system. Make friends with your local booksellers and your local librarians, because if you're ever going to ask them to stock your book or for favors, you'll at least get their attention. And also they're really awesome people, and they can help you with research and market information and what people like or don't like and what's trending in your area. So we should always make friends with our local booksellers and librarians, in my opinion. Is there a way to check on WorldCat to see when a library added my book? I do not believe so, Mike. Now, anyone feel free to jump on and correct me, but I've never seen like a notice of when something was added. So I don't think so, but I could be wrong. And also keep in mind that with WorldCat, sometimes they are several months. So not only do we know that not only do librarians sometimes take months to catalog a book and get it onto the shelf, even with a PCIP block, but beyond that, sometimes WorldCat will then take months to get that in their catalog. So it may be months in the making. So but sometimes it's quicker. It depends on the library and the metadata and all that. So you could see a book show up on WorldCat that just got ordered last month, but you may also see something that was ordered 6 months or a year ago. So even tracking just the new ones doesn't necessarily mean it came from any specific place. Makes it a little tricky, but it's got its limitations. All right. Yes, if you're going wide with your audiobook with Find a Way Voices, Authors Republic, I recommend you get a PCIP block for your audiobook. It's not required. It is recommended. Yes. And again, the PCIP block is separate. It's a separate, so a lot of times they bundle price. I know Cassidy does, Donahue does, but it is a separate entry in the catalog. You must tell them you need separate PCIP blocks or PCIP entries for paperback, ebook, and audiobook. So sorry, you guys. Okay. All right. Tara's question regarding Ingram Sparks e-proof approval. There are 2 approvals you can choose from. I got this. So funny story. I got this question from Felice, who's on our call. She sent me this question, the same one that Tara's asking, and that is when there's approval for Ingram Spark, there are 2 options. One is to approve a title for printing, distribution, and sales from orders placed by my account and or retailers. The second option is the other is to approve this title for printing from orders placed by my account only. Which one do we choose? When do we choose it? What if we're doing pre-order? Does approving it for orders from other accounts mean that they're just going to get the books today? Because we don't want that. And I got that question from Felice. I think it was the end of last week, early this week. I don't know. But I got that question. And then literally the next email in was the same question. And I answered the other person and didn't answer Felice. And now Terry's asking. So it's a hot topic. So yes, what you choose is you want to choose, if you choose the approve the title for printing from orders placed by my account only, your book does not get listed on the retailers. It means only you can ever order the book. So if you are just ordering it internally, great. However, if you are trying to put your book up for sale, like you want your book to go live, or you're trying to get a pre-order live, you want to select this title is approved for printing, distribution, and sale from orders placed by my account and or retailers. This is when that on sale date and your pub date are very important. When you're setting up your book, you probably would have noticed the on sale date and the pub date. And so if you set the pub date, let's say for September 21st of 2022, and we approve it to go live for sale from orders from my account and others, it will make it as a pre-order for September 21st, 2022. So it's just the pre-order, but it will start to populate on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Bookshop and all of those places. So that's how it goes. And then if we go to our own account, we can also order. But when you order books, when it's set on a pre-order, you go to order your own books and it'll say, oh, this book doesn't go on sale until September 21st. Do you want to bypass that date for your own account? So you can order books early. Other people can't do that. They can only order books based on the on sale date, which is your your pub date unless you set a different on sale date. Why would you ever set a different on sale date? If you are looking for your book to be able to be ordered from bookstores and places a little bit early so they have it in their store for the launch, then you set your on sale date a little bit early. It's not uncommon for an on sale date to be a week or 2 or even 3 ahead of time, so that when when retailers order the book, they can actually order it and have some copies shipped in time for a launch date. So that's why the on sale date may be chosen to be a little bit earlier. But yes, you want to approve for sale from your account and other retail accounts, or else your book will never show up. If you have set up your book for sale and you're like, I don't see it on any retailers or anything like that, that may be why. Yes, so you can set it for print and orders from your account only if you don't want it on pre-order. You can do that. And then later you can enable for other retailers, and that's when it will start setting up for like pre-order, going up onto those retailer websites. But you may have to contact Ingram Spark for that. I have seen where people try to switch it over and the system doesn't take it until you actually call Ingram Spark or get in touch with them, and they have to manually do that for you. So just be aware of that and to keep a close eye when you switch it over. Let me see.